Cool wrap. So Deka, where are you calling in from? You're muted. Still can't hear. Nope, we got no sound. It doesn't say you're muted. I just can't hear you. Yeah, it doesn't. All right, you're not muted. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and my question is about community building, but maybe you just have some other questions to give me in response.
Sure. Okay.
Instead of answering it. So one of the things that I do is, I guess basically it's kind of about pivoting community, because one of the things I do run retreats in Morocco, and I've done this for a couple of years, but I'm finding that who is coming, it's feeling a little more, they want to touch the hem of my garment and not kind of a reciprocal relationship. And so I'm trying to figure out how do we start to switch to where I don't, yes, I am a leader, the leader, those things, but then also I don't want to feel like I am constantly the mother and having to lead people. And so I guess just, yeah, to me, it is a community question of building community, and how do you start to transition people to know that they need to show up with something, even though they are paying me as the leader, if that makes sense.
Two questions. One is, what kind of workshops are you leading? And two, is it locals that are coming? Are people flying from all over, or who are these people? So
no, they fly in from there. Pretty much everybody is US based, but everybody flies to Morocco, to Marrakesh. So and the retreats themselves are called Lost and Found. And so it is a letting go of who you are to open up to who you can become. And so it's not one of those, like, I'm not doing workshops during the whole week. It is literally immersing yourself in Morocco. Most of the people who follow me, there is a sense of they kind of want to do what I have done, how I have lived, so that to experience Morocco like that.
Why Morocco?
I don't know. I was traveling. I had gone to Bali and I had taken a train trip across the country, different things. And as I started sharing stuff online back in 2015, people were saying like, oh my God, I think it's probably how I talk about what I'm doing, and just I am a writer too. And so they started being like, I would love to travel with you. And I put up a retreat for some ridiculous price, $1,300 years ago, and it sold out in 48 hours. And so I rent out the Riyadh, and people just come, and I do everything. Like, it's not with a tour team. I do everything myself, all my own contacts. I had never actually been there before, the first time I did it. And people just came, and they keep coming back, and it's great, but it's feeling a little more like a tour-ish than I want it to be, a little more campfire unfolding. And that's hard when people have watched me, but there's a way I don't feel like they're kind of invested, if that makes sense.
Like that, they don't really want to be there for themselves and their own growth. They just want to be around you and in your aura.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like that, or it is a, sometimes I have to be mindful about not coming off defensive, to be like, this isn't a fucking trip. If you want to go on a trip to fucking Morocco, go with somebody else. Like, we're not trying to cram in everything into the days. This is about like paying attention to who you are when the English isn't the dominant language, and when you hear the call to prayer all the time, and yeah, it wakes you up, but this is somebody else's culture. Who are you when you let go of who you've been in your normal life? And so it doesn't feel like they get that as much as I want them to. And so I'm kind of like, what's the disconnect? That's why I was like, maybe you have some other questions you can throw back at me or something.
Well, I've got some thoughts on this. Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, cool. That's very cool what you're doing. Second, Atlanta, I've never been, but my friend Kevin Gleese used to run Dad's Garage Improv Company down there. So I've got a long-term date in my mind to go visit. But okay, this is a filtering issue. So you might want to check out on YouTube. I've got a playlist on, I think it's just called Filtering. And this is the age-old question in marketing, particularly for services. is you got to have a screen on the window. The fresh air gets in, but the bugs don't get in. It can't be so tight that no air gets in, but it can't be so big that all the bugs get, and so this is the right sizing of it. And it sounds like there's something a little off about it.
Mm-hmm.
So some options you could do. One is when they go to purchase, you can have what I call an "Are you sure" page. And if you just go to my website and just in the search bar type "Are you sure," I've got a blog post about this, about how I wrote it, and because I've done this for my other programs. But basically, on that page, they click to buy, but instead of taking the money, it's a little video from you saying, "Hey, thanks so much for wanting to sign up for this trip. Before you do, there's some things I got to say to make sure that this is really a fit." And this is stuff that might also be in the sales letter, but you pull it out to highlight it.
Gotcha.
You're just very clear. Look, here's who this is for. Here's who it's not for. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we are not doing. Like, if you want this, don't come. I love you, and I love you from a distance. Don't come. Here's how we do it, and here's how we don't do it. And so you basically, in the video, you're slowing down the sale. You're saying, look, I want to make sure this is right. And so please watch this video now and read the following below, because you probably skipped it on the sales letter. Read it now. And then I'm going to ask you to really sit with it. And I could even see you turning it into an extension of the work where you say, look, this is all about you traveling to a different place and being in somebody else's place. And how do you conduct yourself when you're in their place? And who are you in a place that's not your own? Well, you're on my website now. So this isn't your place. So it's already begun. So the courtesy that I'm going to be asking for in the trip, well, I'm asking for it here, that you would really pay attention and see and meditate. In the same way, I'm going to ask you to reflect on things if you come, but to take it seriously. And if it's not a fit, hey, no hard feelings. And maybe we'll see you down the road somewhere else, but I've been as clear as I can be, And so I would do everything you can to have a page that filters out, and then you see if it works or if it doesn't. Another resource I would check out is there's a great podcast called The End of Tourism. My friend Chris too came up with. You could probably find it anywhere. But he looks at the consequences and causes of tourism and what does it do to us and do to the places we visit. So it may just be of interest to you, but also there may be certain episodes that you could send them. Like, please listen to this beforehand. Or maybe you interview him or he interviews you. There may be a hub connection there. And then last thought, there's a great book called The Tao of Leadership by John Heider, Heider. And it takes the Tao Te Ching, but translates it in the context of leadership. And it does address some of these questions of people looking at the leader. One thing I found, just as a micro suggestion, is when the group is turning to the leader too much, sometimes the leader actually has to leave the room. Sometimes you just have to be gone, be away, and let them figure it out. Because otherwise what happens, as you've probably experienced, you're sitting in a circle talking and everyone's talking to you. Whenever they talk to you and they're not talking to each other. And I get so uncomfortable with that. So at a certain point, it's either we can address it directly and say, look, stop that. Or we just leave.
Okay.
Anyways, these are some initial thoughts that come from what you've said.
Super helpful. Definitely experienced that the last time. Actually, somebody who came brought that up, where she was like, you need to go in the room and not be out here, because they're like looking to you, and then I get annoyed, I get drained. One quick thing.
Yeah.
Have you had the experience with, or what happens, and if this is too big of a question to answer now, we can move on. Have you had the experience with, because I normally am very good about who this is for and who this isn't for, when people don't identify, if I'm like, if you're type A, if you only got to speak English, if you've got to be connected to Wi-Fi, don't come. That stuff has been on my page. The problem, I'm like, oh, what I'm seeing is, what happens when people don't recognize that they're type A? What happens when they don't recognize that I'm like, how do we solve for that?
There's a couple thoughts. One is you could create a quiz or an assessment.
Okay.
Like, please fill this out before, and that can break it down into more recognizable things.
Okay.
Like, do you have your phone in your hand as you're filling out this quiz, and you're checking your phone while you're doing this, or but and you might even, this is the beautiful thing. There's a reason it's called copywriting, by the way. It's because there's a lot of copying that's happened. But for something like this, so we're talking type A, phone addiction, and what was the other one?
Um, they're not self-aware. Like, you see these things on this list and you think you're not it, but actually you wanted a luxury experience. This is not, it's
Okay.
not, you know, in the boondocks, but this is not room service either.
Okay. So a couple things. So one is you might there are quizzes that people can take to figure out if they're type A. There are quizzes that other people have already made to figure out if they've got phone addiction. And so you might ask them to do that.
Okay.
You know, or suggest that they do it. It's like, if you're not sure, do these quizzes now. And you could come up with your own version of the quiz, or just here's 10 things to read. And if you can say yes to a lot of them. But then I think what's important is, because maybe you'll filter those people out, maybe you won't. You'll do your best, but you can let them know the consequences if they show up with it. It's like, look, you can show up, but if you're on your phone all the time, here's what's going to happen. Just so that there's no surprise, just so that they're like, and that you, and also sometimes we just have to get it in multiple ways. One is you do a quiz. One is there's the "Are you sure?" page. Another one might be we have to do a 30-minute call before the trip where we're going to talk, and you talk through it again. Another can be when they click the buy now button, there's other buttons they have to check. Like, I understand I'm not supposed to be on my phone the whole time. I understand this isn't, 5-star room service. This is a rural situation. I understand. So, because part of that is just also protects you. And then you can say, look, here was the deal. When you signed up on the sales page, on the "Are you sure?" page, in our phone conversation, and in the check thing, you had to check those boxes 4 times. This was mentioned, and here you are doing it. And you have to drop this now. And this is part of your work. And then if you're resistant, then you have to leave, and there's no refund. So you need to decide if you want to stay and actually show up and do the work, or if you want to go. But if you go, I'm keeping all the money. That's the deal. Somebody else could have taken this spot, but then at least there's a clear agreement, because otherwise you get into the, well, I didn't know. And yeah.
Really good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So good to meet you.
You too.
Okay, Amanda. And by the way, all you, I know some of you may need to go. We're already over time. There's no hard feelings, no need to say farewell. We'll see you around. We got Dayka's website if anyone wants to check it out. DaykaRobinson.com, DaykaRobinson.com. If you really want to go to Morocco, check it out.